Now, in the face of this, we learned more about that FISA application. It was everything I said it was. Everything I said it was. And it has been my position from day one, when I put this thing together way back in March 2017, that those applications or that application needed to be released so we could get to the bottom of this. And then I'm watching some former Obama mouthpiece on my favorite cable channel say, yeah, but Carter Page had already left the campaign. Carter Page had already left the campaign. It's about the dossier. Carter Page was an excuse by the FBI to surveil the Trump campaign. It's not about Carter Page, who's an innocent man, as I've said over and over again, walking the streets who they've never charged. And yet he was surveilled for a year by his government. For a year, unknowingly. They're reading his texts, reading his emails, listening on his phone calls, and they got nothing. Nothing. Here's what I said March 2017. I would encourage my colleagues at Fox to listen to this. I said 2017. Cut 2, go. Let me just say this. Where does it go from here? They ought to release both FISA court applications where they sought the warrant. The one in the summer and the one in October. So we know exactly what they were doing. That's number one. Number two, Congress needs to see the daily presidential intelligence briefings over the past year or so. Those are the beginnings of a serious investigation. Number three, for the Republicans in Congress, you control the majority. If the Democrats do not want to assist, and they won't, because I was starting to think Chuck Schumer and the others are participating in all this cover-up activity, then plow ahead without them. But this is important to the country. We cannot have a sitting presidential administration unleashing 6 federal agencies, intelligence and law enforcement. I don't mean the president personally sitting there and saying, you know what, Valerie, let's go get him. Obviously, the Attorney General and the FBI were involved in this. This is how you get a FISA court application prepared and submitted.
Do you think former President Obama was involved in this? And if so, how much was he involved?
I'm not Nostradamus here. I just think that we ought to find out. But I will tell you this. He's more involved than he says. I mean, it's his executive branch. It's his Justice Department. All right, that's enough. It's always been key to get to the FISA applications and key to get to the presidential daily briefing. Nobody's talking about it. I keep talking about that. What did Obama know? Well, what was he told? We need both of those. We, the people. We need both of those. They don't need to redact 99% of what's in the FISA application. That's unnecessary. But they did use opposition research paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC to get a FISA application. But that's not enough. In March, I pointed my finger at these FISA judges, that they weren't doing their jobs. Cut 3, go.
Is this, based on your knowledge of history, at least the biggest abuse of power and corruption in your lifetime? Because to me, this is Watergate. Are you kidding? This is Watergate times 1,000 to me.
When you and I spoke way back in March of last year, and we laid this out, we were called kooks, conspiracy theorists, almost everything we've said, and we didn't have a lot. We were pulling it together. And I was focused specifically on the FISA court because there were leaks about the FISA court. But I want to underscore something tonight, Sean, and it is this. These federal judges sitting on this FISA court act like they have no role in this.
Baloney.
They were abused. The court was abused. The court was misled. People should be held to account. They read the newspapers now. They watch television now. We presented this judge with the evidence and filed it.
Last thing.
Congress needs to find out now why these judges, even today, aren't holding these people accountable.
Comey said to Trump and...
All right, that's enough. Landmark Legal Foundation. I've since moved from president to chairman because I can't work on it on a daily basis. We have a wonderful president there now, Pete Hutchison. But Landmark Legal Foundation filed a motion with the FISA court judge who issued the original warrant And in that motion, we informed the court of the various violations that had taken place, of the dossier and so forth, and how she was misled and that she had an obligation to do something about this, to hold a hearing, to hold people in contempt, and she blew it off. She blew it off. Now, what I go on to say is that the FISA court needs to be abolished and replaced with something that's more akin to a regular court, but still secret. Because most of the time, that court handles serious international issues relating to national security and terrorism, and we don't want to reveal it to the enemy. But the judges have demonstrated that they're incapable of handling this properly, because they allowed this to take place in the middle of an election, a general election, without any opposition to the government. It's the judge who's supposed to be skeptical, not a rubber stamp. And for the vast majority of these FISA applications, these warrants are rubber stamped. They're almost all approved, including this one, and including 3 extensions. And by the way, those reports I cite talked about an application attempt the summer before. I believe it was July in 2016 that was more focused on Trump. I've not heard another thing about that since. I don't know if Congress has looked at this. I don't know if the Inspector General's looked at this. These were according to news reports. Now, was there an earlier attempt or not? And if so, where's that application? But I've been talking about the release of these applications now since March of 2017. That's 15 months ago. I've been talking about also reviewing these presidential daily briefings 15 months ago. We still haven't seen any of those, because this goes to the heart of the matter. This goes to the heart of the matter. And the FISA court now is incapable of doing the job it was supposed to do when it was set up, I believe, in 1979. Now, the people demanding that ICE be removed because it's actually doing its job, they're insane. But the FISA court failed, and failed miserably. Miserably. There were no grounds for probable cause and a counterintelligence-related warrant. None. It was concocted by the Hillary Clinton campaign, and they laundered their money through a Washington law firm and a Washington slip-and-fall lawyer, who then hired Fusion GPS, and they in turn hired Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele, who was unreliable, who was a foreigner, who had served in foreign intelligence, and used information from the Kremlin, which we now know wasn't even verified, called disinformation, put it into this dossier. The FBI was even thinking of hiring him. If in fact they did pay him a fee, we still don't know. And this was the central basis for spying. And not just spying on Carter Page. That dossier wasn't about Carter Page primarily. It was about Donald Trump. They got that dossier in front of that judge who approved a warrant with no probable cause based on largely information that was bought and paid for by the opposition party, the opposition campaign, using a straw man to get to a straw man, to use phony Kremlin information that was unverified. That's the spectacle. That's the story. That is the scandal right there. It always has been. But freedom of the press doesn't seem to have encouraged the press to follow the story. I can remember Jake Tapper saying this was all a distraction thrown out there by the Republicans, because the real issue is what Adam Smith keeps talking as the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. And whatever Schiff is talking about, that's the real story, you see. They participated for months in trashing Devin Nunes. Republicans in the Senate trashing Devin Nunes. One of the gutsiest men I've ever met. Still, Brian Stelter, he hasn't admitted that he was a buffoon back then when I was bringing all this up. You have no first-hand knowledge that there was a FISA warrant. That's what he said. Right, Mr. Producer? That's what he said. He wrote it. No, I didn't, because I'm not a reporter. I was relying on other reporters. Well, but you don't have any first-hand knowledge. Listen, I wasn't there when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, but I know he was assassinated. I wasn't there when they built the Golden Gate Bridge, but there it is. You idiot. And he still has no interest with this horrific scandal involving law enforcement, involving our intelligence agencies, involving the Obama administration, involving the FISA court and the FISA judges. This horrific scandal. He's focused on Sean Hannity and Fox. That just shows you what a pea-brain he is. What a clown. Meanwhile, we still have no further information on unmasking the great Trey Gowdy, who was put in charge of this. Nothing from Trey Gowdy. A true backbencher who's been pushed to the front and shows up everywhere. He's the Lindsey Graham of the House of Representatives. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Even now, what did Trump say in his 2-hour meeting with Putin? We still don't know.